did. While he was transiting the Atlantic, he talked to the ship's captain, and he said, "Do you know the location where the ocean liner went down a couple of weeks ago?" And the captain said, "I do. It's in about a day." Spafford said, "Could you please get me when we're close to that spot so I can go up on deck?" He didn't tell the captain why. So the day came, the captain got Spafford and brought him up to the deck, and Spafford took out a piece of paper and a pencil. And he began to write these words as he looked out at the ocean that had enveloped 4 of his daughters not long before that moment. And he wrote these words: "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, he has taught me to say, it is well with my soul." He would go on to write more. And eventually someone would take those words and put them to music. It's a hymn that is sung often at funerals. It is well with my soul. So when I put all this together, I say this: it really does come down to the keel. Because if our keel is well maintained, then we will survive the storm. And we will exit that storm a more competent, a more courageous, a more compassionate leader. And that's what the world's looking for. That's what the early great leaders of our nation provided: competence, courage, and compassion. And maybe, just maybe, when we are hit with that storm and we still have to lead, that we'll be able to say with Horatio Spafford, "It is well with my soul." You can be the future Washington, Adam, Jefferson, put whatever name you want. But it's not about just having a good feeling when you leave from here. It's about action. It's about changing just one little thing on your movement towards being an extraordinary leader. And normally it takes you telling someone else and having them hold you accountable for that change. And if you do that every time you go to a conference, every time you read a book, every time you are mentored, just one little aspect, one little change, then we're going to be in good hands. And you will be the people who will be able to lead, not just in organizational crises, because to some degree they're a little bit easier. But more importantly, you'll be able to lead when you have your own personal crisis and keep organizations and people moving forward. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. And I'm actually looking, Bo, is there time for questions? Or I didn't look at my watch. I guess a couple of questions I would be more than happy to answer about what I talked about what you've heard this week, about leadership. Don't ask me why I have 10 children, because it's a really long story, and I don't want to keep you here because you probably have flights and other things, but I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, no one wants to try a hard question on me. Someone is making their way to the microphone.
Sir, I'm in the same class as Julie Devlin from here at the Academy, and what you said really hit home for me because yesterday I found out that my sister she's a brain tumor, and I'm going to be there for her for surgery, and I'm terrified. And what you said, I'm just wondering, everyone here at the Leadership Conference, whether you're in a combat situation or for me, when it hits home with the family, how do you deal with a situation and be strong and when you're just absolutely terrified?
Yeah, I'm not a big hugger. I think one thing is, please sit down, Julie. I think one thing is not trying to pretend that it's not happening in your life, and trying to pretend that things are normal, because they're not. And I think it's very important. One of the things I learned, I could tell you a whole bunch of things I learned. I just gave 3 today. But the other one is that we need one another. I actually wrote an article for OCF called, what's the name of the Beatles song? Well, not all that he needs is love, but I don't know what it was. It was a great article. No, I'm kidding. With a little, with a little help from my friends. I think I was resistant for the help that I probably was going to need. And one of the things I did was more and more welcome that help. And I think that was part of the humbling process for me, that I had to learn that people wanted to help, and that I needed their help because I was very, very tired. My wife, I can't describe the partnership and the support and how important she was throughout this whole process. And one of the things that I did learn is that numbness that's there, you got to realize it's going to be there and it's okay. And you know, your GPA, I don't want to tell you this, but your GPA might drop and some other things, but it comes down to what's important and what's urgent. And I also learned that it's important to be at those places that are most important at the right time. I turned down a lot of things during this time to make sure that I was with Misty at the right times. And that's another part of the decision process. But it's okay to cry, it's okay to get help, it's okay to pray, and it's okay to hurt. All those things are part of that process. I had a sister who was killed in an automobile accident when I was 15. And, there was a fairly long grieving process for me. And I remember being deployed when Princess Di was killed in a car accident. And I remember watching the TV cast of this and weeping. And I'm thinking to myself, it was years after my sister had died. And I was thinking, I don't really even care that much about Princess Di. What am I doing? There are those times that they just strike. Part of life, and you accept it, realize it, and then you continue to step forward, and you keep checking your keel, because the keel is going to be that piece that's going to help you as you walk through that. So again, I just point to that as an example. It's so common. It's so common. And if it's not happening to you as a leader, I guarantee it's happening to people that are following you. And to have a sensitivity to that only comes when you're a little bit more compassionate, which I had to go through to get to that point. Any other questions? Okay. Again, the potential's here. The storms will come. Make sure the keel's right. And pick one thing to walk out those doors, tell someone else about it, have them hold you accountable to what you want to change, and go do it, because we need great leaders. Thanks again. Thanks, both.